What's up, listeners? It's the Russian dude. Several days ago, something very important went completely under the radar of mass media around the world. Once the clock in the Kremlin struck past midnight, Vladimir Putin, who usually retires for the night after a day of hard work thinking about the invasion and how to keep himself in power forever, well, now he suddenly decided to stun the world with an unexpected press briefing. Kremlin halls went silent, cameras clicked, and everyone, or so they thought, prepared for the historic announcement. Would the long overdue 30-day ceasefire finally materialize? Would Russia, under mounting international pressure, at last press pause on its relentless campaign in Ukraine? Or would the world witness yet another classic Putin's swerve into conversations about nothing, empty promises and bluff? We simply could not ignore that spontaneous late-night meeting, because as history showed us, and we even discussed it in one of our previous episodes, the biggest, most important announcements from Putin usually come in the middle of the night, when most regular people are sleeping, so there is obviously no that kind of immediate reaction. Instead of a handshake or an ovation, Putin launched into material worthy of a midnight drama show. He showered praise on North Korea's military, being extremely poetic and descriptive about shared exercises as he was auditioning for propaganda swap meet. When he finally addressed the ceasefire, the moment fizzled. The ceasefire, he said, is over. Then he declared, as though he just was reciting the results of a sporting event rather than the fate of countless lives on both sides. His concession to diplomacy, some might ask, well, just a familiar offer to resume talks without preconditions later in Turkey. A phrase so vague it might even mean anything and happen literally at any time. As a result, once again, political experts said that they were able to accurately predict everything Putin is about to say. Which honestly is not that hard at that point, since he talks about the very same things couple dozen times before switching to something completely different. But jokes aside, there lays a bitter realization nevertheless. Once again, the promise of peace was eclipsed by the spectacle of endless negotiations. And by the way, on Saturday I did a 20 seconds summary of another major topic that happened that day, and you guys seem to kinda enjoy that format. Many of you preferred it to watching somebody else talking about exactly the same topic, but taking 20 minutes of your time instead. So, let's keep this new tradition going then, I guess, and if there is something big happening, I will quickly summarize it for you. So, what say you? So yeah, long story short, there was another phone call this Monday between Trump and Putin that lasted 2 hours. According to the Russian side, the entire conversation was on first names basis, like Vladimir and Donald. And nobody wanted to hang up first, like some teenage kids talking about their first loves. Before the call, Trump personally asked Zelensky if he has any specific questions to ask Putin. It was not revealed to us which specific questions were requested though, but well, you can guess. As a result of Trump-Putin conversation, Russia declared that it is ready to work with Ukraine together to come up with a future peace deal. The Kremlin even declared that the whole peace thing is even kinda going in the more or less right direction, whatever it means. Both countries should compromise, they said. Both, Russia included. And one of the first responses of Zelensky about this phone call is that Ukraine will never accept Russia's ultimatums, such as complete withdrawal from occupied territories of Ukrainian forces. Which is obviously nonsense. I mean, it's their territory, it's their land, it's their country. Well, as you can see, guys, that's classic Putin playing with Trump kind of situation. Reignite the hope, show that Russia never refused peace, promise and commit to nothing, and achieve nothing. And Trump is so desperate for peace that he still falls for this Putin's favorite play. Well, that was the short summary of the call. If you like those, please once again subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and drop a comment, to tell me what do you still like them. Well, now let's get back to the original topic of the video, which is Putin's midnight rush inside the Kremlin. Alright, so picture this. The Kremlin's ornate clock chimes echo through marble corridors of the Kremlin, TV crews scramble into position and reporters clutch to their notepads like lifelines. No one expected that late-night address, and yet there he was. Putin stepping under harsh lights that turned his already pale complexion into an outer-worldly glow. He began with familiar things like praising North Korean soldiers as paragons of mastery, discipline and courage, an obvious attempt to tighten alliances with fellow outcast states. It felt less like diplomacy and more like a fanboy tribute at a rock concert. But then finally came the twist everyone suspected was coming. Instead of extending the ceasefire, Putin flicked his hand dismissively and said, "That's it, the window has closed. Now the war continues." Well, in a heartbeat, scripts were shredded, tweet threads rewritten, and video titles changed. People even joked that they must be mind readers, because how else could they have anticipated his desire for spectacle over solution? But the truth is more straightforward, to be honest. Putin thrives on keeping both friends and enemies off balance. By dangling the possibility of peace only to snatch it away, he reinforces the notion that negotiations are negotiable, but the power is absolute. Later came the offer for new talks in Turkey, so-called without preconditions. A phrase so amorphous it lacks any firm foundation. Would Kiev trust it? Will mediators secure safe passage for convoys? Who would even guarantee the implementation of this peace deal? Well, no answers emerged. Instead, the world was left with an image of a leader playing chess blindfolded, moving pieces at whim and daring readers to question the rules of the entire engagement. As viewers, we witnessed another iteration of a long-running Kremlin production. Promise hope, snatch it away, and then watch the global audience scramble to find any reasons to keep holding to the smallest chance of peaceful resolution. Because if you take faith entirely, it is very hard to get it back. But if you always leave one single spark ready to ignite the flame, well then hope never dies. Does Europe still believe that Putin is serious in what he promises? Well, let's talk about this topic right now. On one side of the diplomatic divide stands Europe's emerging peacemakers, waving grand declarations like banners in the wind. Germany's new Chancellor, for example, Friedrich Merz, boldly predicted a weekend signing of a 30-day truce, as if mere words could bind battlefield carnage. In Kiev, a crowd of European leaders and sprinkling of Trump loyalists cheered this vision, convinced that unity and moral clarity would triumph over tanks and drones. Even the usually delusional Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson of Kremlin, concluded that minor nuances needed ironing out first. Surely, nothing just a few cups of tea could not resolve, right? And no, don't worry, not those cups of tea, just regular tea. At least I hope. Yet while the chancellor of the world's fourth largest economy appeared optimistic, the skies above Kiev darkened with ominous warnings of impending air assault. The US administration, forced to raise alarms about another major strike, exposed the chasm between Merz's hopes and the grim reality on the ground. How could anyone reconcile the promise of a ceasefire with the sounds of incoming missiles? It was like scribbling a cease and desist order on the cockpit window of an approaching fully loaded bomber. I don't know. Basically pointless in other words. This stark dissonance begs the question: are European leaders merely indulging in wishful thinking, or have they been misled by the Kremlin's carefully choreographed theatrics? When words ring louder than the roar of artillery, it's a signal, but not of a progress, obviously, instead of a desperation. The whole world seems so focused on crafting a paper piece that catches on fire the moment it meets the sun and magnifying glass of the Kremlin. And meanwhile, Ukrainians brace for another dawn filled with the black smoke and the tremors of ground-shaking explosions. The ceasefire may exist in speeches, but in the trenches, the only thing for sure is the next thunderous drone hitting its target. The question is, how does Putin still able to get away with all the promises he makes that everyone already knows at this point that they all will be broken? Let's try to answer this question in our next chapter. If you think of peace talks as solemn negotiations conducted behind closed doors, well, it's not exactly that. At least not in this war. Putin has turned them into a carnival ride that never stops. First came the Easter truce, 30 fleeting hours of silence that ended with mutual finger-pointing and sporadic rocket fire. Then the Victory Day ceasefire, a patriotic pause designed to ensure no drone spoils Putin's parade while Xi Jinping and as other guests watched from the stands. Each truce served a purpose: to encourage Trump's base, to entice foreign leaders, and to project an image of "it's about to happen very, very soon, just wait a little bit longer." And also to do all of this in a very carefully selected timings. Now we are offered the ultimate spectacle: a proposed 30-day ceasefire complete with nuances to negotiate and further talks that could stretch into eternity. The phrase "without preconditions" rings like a, half-told joke. How do you even start a conversation with no starting point? It's like inviting someone to dinner without specifying the address or the menu. I mean, imagine a guy who met a girl online and then invited her to have some food together without saying when and where. And when the lady obviously never shows up, for obvious reasons, the guy starts complaining to his friends that all women are the same, there is no real love left. Well, that's exactly the behavior of Putin he's demonstrating right now. His entire inner circle at this point even mastered this sleight of hand: promise the world, deliver ambiguity, and watch as both allies and adversaries chase their own tails. Meanwhile, the media circus barrels on. Cable news anchors invite experts who dissect every syllable of Kremlin statements, spinning elaborate theories about Putin's hidden motives. Twitter explodes with analysis, speculation, and hot takes, as though social feeds can compel artillery to fall silent. And all the while, the war machine hums along, devouring lives and shattering homes. Each fresh announcement is packaged as hope, but beneath the carnival lights lies the very same crumbling infrastructure of conflict, rusted gears of distrust, and the relentless hunger of an autocrat unwilling to yield or acknowledge his mistakes. We've been down this road before. Back in March, Trump declared that Ukraine had agreed to a ceasefire, sending shockwaves through global news cycles and invigorating peace lobbyists.
We're going to see if we can work a peace agreement, a ceasefire and peace, and I think we'll be able to.
Fast forward to May, and the offer on the table is, virtually identical. Only the backdrop has shifted, has changed. Europe's pledge of unity, Trump's peacemaking flair, and China's quiet nods create the illusion of momentum. But what does Putin gain from a genuine 30-day pause? No new oil revenues, no East sanctions, no softened Western resolve, no Ukrainian territory, absolutely nothing. In fact, a truce would risk stalling his advance, give Ukraine breathing room to regroup, and expose Russia's diminished manpower and logistical problems. If he refuses the peace outright, rest assured, Trump will cause a scene. But if he plays along and keeps promising these nebulous negotiations, that is the one what definitely keeps everyone dangling. Unfortunately, it's a classic win-win situation for Putin. He frames himself as the reluctant peacemaker, the one holding the world's destiny in his hands, while still commanding the battlefield. Ask yourself, do we really believe this time will be different? Will those 30 days of silence magically pave the path to reconciliation? Or are we chasing phantoms, convinced that enough hot air and toxic tweets can sculpt a real peace amid the rubble? Meanwhile, the public spectacle intensifies. European capitals hustle to appear proactive. Washington seeks a triumphant political narrative, and Moscow basks in the global attention. But the people living in this nightmare, the mothers burying their children, the fathers hiding in the basements from the mobilization, they all see through the veil of deceit. For them, negotiations are measured not in the headlines, but in the last moments before the blast, the smoke-filled corridors of bomb shelters, the desperation that seeps through every single waking hour. They know there is no finale, only an ever-repeating loop of hope and despair. But as long as there is faith, there is hope. Hope that it all ends soon, because hope never dies. Well, there you have it, guys. If you missed my previous episode of Thank God It's Monday podcast, we have Konstantin from Inside Russia as our guest. Please go ahead and definitely give it a watch. Incredible interview. I'm 100% recommending. It is already on my channel, the previous video. If you want to see more videos like this and more podcasts, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, leave a comment. If you wish to support my order, links down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in